Hello everyone, this is Vinay here from Learn Coding with Vinay, and welcome back to my channel Learn Coding with Vinay-SQL for Dev. And again, welcome back to the mini video series where we are designing a database for the drinking water distribution business. Right. In previous video, we discussed the business scenario. How does how do they operate? Right. In this video, we'll start designing our tables, right? So if if you have not watched the previous video, I would highly request to highly recommend and request to go back and check out the video first, because then by checking the first video, which is video 0, you will be able to understand the business, right? And once you understand the business, then the next would be next database design would be a bit easier, right? So go and check the video number 0, which is agenda video. Usually I keep it video 0, agenda video, right? Then from video 1 we actually start the actual stuff, right? So from this video, which is video 1, we will start designing our tables, right? So we'll discuss about few common tables. Those are used in almost every application, right? They are user role and user role, right? And I have one more table, user addresses, because we will need this table. You might not see user addresses table on many applications, but these three, user role and user role, will be there for sure, right? Now again, we discussed in the previous video that there are three kind of actor or user, mainly vendor, customer, and vendor employees, right? And there will be one more user, admin, who will be the guy who is actually managing this either mobile application or web application entirely, right? So maybe managing master data, managing vendors, users, etc, right? So there are four kind of users, right? Now let's try to understand this user role table, right? So user table, we will be using user details, and the user can be any customer, vendor, employee, right? Then role table is a master data table that will have the role names, right? Vendor, customer, vendor, employee, admin, right? And user role table is actually a mapping table between user and role, where we will be defining the relation between user and role. So basically, which user has which role, that information will go into the user role table, right? And again, one user can have multiple roles. For example, let's say a user can be a vendor of water distribution. At the same time, he or she can be customer of another vendor also, right? So we'll have to keep the database design in such a way that there can be one to many relationship between user and user role table. So let me jump into the SSMS now, SQL Server Management Studio. Right, I have designed the table. To save the time, I don't want to type it in the video itself. Right, so I have designed the tables, and we will discuss it from here. Right. So first is the user table. Again, a quite common table in almost every application. So what we are taking ID, we are taking it as a number and identity. Now, so this is an auto-generated column, right? We have other options also. We can use GUIDs and sequence also. But I usually prefer, declaring one column as ID, make it integer and identity, and that ultimately will be our primary key, right? So that is that. Name is the name of the user, quite easy, right? Email is varchar. We have taken varchar 200 and null. Now in this domain, not everyone uses actually email, right, for their regular usage, but mobile number will be quite common, to use. So that's why I have kept email as optional, but mobile number we have kept it numeric 10, and we have make it unique. So we will consider that folks or user will log into our application using a mobile number, right? Then password, this we can take it as your 4 or 6 digit pin or any password, right? Now depending on the encryption we are going to use, for example, we can use encryption, password encryption at the SQL server also, and we can also use encryption at the front end. So for example, if you are writing your application in Java, PHP, or any other C sharp, any other language, then encrypting and decrypting password, we can keep it at the front end also, and we can keep it on the back end also. So if we are keep it at the back end, then ideal practice is to keep it as a var binary. If I keep it at the front end, we just need encrypted text to be stored there, and we can use nvarchar data type of password, right? Then salt column is generally we use GUID, right? So A salt column is the column, basically it's a key to encrypt or decrypt your password, right? So we are storing that as well, right? Then is active. Is active indicates, whether a user is active or not. So if you have, if you are a beginner and if you have not worked with any application, then let me tell you one more important concept over here, that most of the application, master data are never deleted. They are just flagged as, okay, this is deleted, and that flagged is actually is active column. So if is active column is 1, that record is active in the system. If is active column is 0, then that record is not active. Basically it's deleted from the application. However, it is not physically deleted, it is just a flag that says that, okay, this record is deleted, and so it is something called logical delete, right? The next column is last login date. Now you may need this for audit purpose, so whether if there is a user who is not able to log in, and maybe you need to investigate it, then you may need sometime, the help desk team may need what was the last time where user was able to log in. So we are keeping it this column for that purpose, right? Then created on, so basically who created this user, create at what time, so by default it is get date. So whenever this record, so whenever there is a record in this table enters, the created on will column will have the data as get date. Get date is to get current date and time, right? And then created by is usually the user who has created the user. So here we might see a cyclic dependency, so that's why I have not declared this created by as a, foreign key, because ideally it is going to refer this id only, and that is the reason we will have to keep it null, and we can't keep it not null, otherwise we will have to have some value over there, right? So usually whenever people designing such database, and when they work on application, they will have just first they will have the admin entry first. So one number user will always be the admin, right? And then rest of the users they will create, and then for those users created by would be that admin guy, right? So for from that first record entry, the cycle will continue, there will be no problem. But for the first user, it is very common practice, when you create the user table, have the one record which is admin record, admin user in, right? So this is all about a user table. So we'll be using mobile, we'll be considering mobile as a username, and we'll have 4-digit password as a 4-digit pin as a password, right? And rest of the details are there for other purpose, right, in application. So login with email is very common, nowadays, because most of the application uses email. But in this case, as I said, the domain is such that the people are not that educated or something like that. They are not used to basically email, right? That is something not they are using on a day-to-day life, right? But mobile is definitely, so it is easier for them to remember their username. Otherwise, email will they'll forget, right? So that's why we have kept mobile as a username, and then we have marked it as a unique, right? So no duplicate entry can land over in the user table. So basically no other user, once a mobile number is registered, no other user can register using the same mobile number. That's why we have taken it as a unique, right? So this is a very nice table design. You can use it on your Excel project also. Now the next is role table. The role table is, let me create this first, let me create this. Okay, it got created. Excellent. Now next is the role table. Now role, as we discussed, admin, vendor employee, and customer name. So we will have this 4 roles over here, and we have id again, integer identity, and it will be primary key. Role name, there has to be role name, so we have marked it as not null. You can't have a blank role name, and it has to be there. And is active, again this is again a master data. So to implement the logical delete, we have kept this is active 1, that means role is active. Is active 0, that means role is deleted. So within the application, anything with role 0 should not be visible. So ideally they are in every query where we will be using, we will always have to use in where condition, where user is active is equal to 1 and role is active is equal to 1, something like that, so that deleted record are actually eliminated from the application logic, right? Now the next is third table. The third table is user role. Over here, as I said, one user can have multiple role. considering one vendor can person can be vendor also and person can be customer also, right? So we have designed the table in such a way that, first is the ID, as we said, it is an auto generated column, right? Second is the user ID, which is actually foreign key, primary key, which is declared as a foreign key, and it refers to the primary key of user ID column over here, this one, right? Again, role ID. So role ID again is a foreign key, and the primary key table is role table and ID column, right? And updated by who updated the record, sorry, on what which day record was updated, who updated the record, whether the that role for that user is active or not, and remarks, right? So these usually columns will be used by admin user, right? They will not be visible in the application for other users, but this can be used by the admin user. For example, let's say an admin user wants to delete someone's role, right? Then he or she can mark this is active as 0, you know and the detail of that admin person also logged in over here. So there is, auditing information are also logged in, who changed the record, right? And then admin can write remarks depending on, you know for what reason it was deleted, or for what reason the access was denied, or something like that, right? And then we have defined a unique key relationship between user ID and role ID. So basically, user and role, there can be only one entry of a user for one role, right? So if a user is entered in this table as a vendor, again the same user, we cannot have the same record for of that vendor, in this table, right? So this combination has to be unique, right? So let me create this table first. I don't think I created this. Yeah, okay. And now let me create this table also. Right, so these three tables got deleted. Now these three tables are very common in almost every application. You may see a few columns here and there, but common practice is to a common or general practice, covers which is covered over here, to have a three separate table. Master user table, master role table. You might see sometime a name as a user master or role master. Currently we have just kept user and role. And then there is a mapping table called user role, which holds the detail of which user has which role, right? Now, so these are very common table. And then we need user address table also in this particular business, because vendor has to deliver their water, right, water gallons on a day-to-day basis, so they should have the customer addresses, right? And at the same time, customer should also have vendor addresses, right? Because let's say someone is relocating to some new area, he or she, they don't know what services are there in their area. So by looking into the website or looking into the application, they can come to know, okay, in this area these are the vendors who are distributing, who are selling water bottles, right? So from the customer and vendor perspective, both we need the addresses. We need addresses of customer also, and we need addresses of vendor also. So that is the reason we have created this user address table, which is common to every role, right? So ideally, vendor employee vendor employee and admin addresses also should be over here. And it is quite simple. ID, first is the number, running number, or it will be primary key. Then the user ID, right? Then address line 1, address line 2, city, state, pin code, which are quite common, right? Then is active, maybe user is active, that user address is active or not. For some time, as I said, if some tenant used to relocate here and there, right? So may at a one time might have one address, at a one time they might have another address, right? So uh, at a one time, only one active address should be there. So keeping that in mind, we have also taken is active column over here. Right. So these are pretty common tables, except user address. These three you will see in almost every application. And we have designed in such a way that they are quite normalized. There is no duplicacy, and we have also maintained relationship between them. Right. So that's it in this video. In the next video, we will move to further tables. Right. So thanks for watching this video, and see you in the next video.